welcome back to the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We are going to be doing some puzzle streak on Lichess, and well, this is the first one, and I'm just gonna explain them. So the first few aren't usually that complicated. In this game, White just attacked and then waited for the promotion. Doesn't really matter what you do here. The best move was definitely to promote and make a knight to hit that square, but he made a queen and will now be mated. I'm going to mute the site because that was loud. Alright, now a thing you can use to solve puzzles pretty quickly is to look for like checks, then you look for captures, and then you look for like attacks. For example, like a queen, not the king, because you already oh my lord, because you already checked that with the checks that you looked for first, and your only check here is actually the thing that wins you a full rook. Now, same thing here. What is the only check you have? Oh, not this, because that hands a rook. What about this? King moves. If it moves here, that's mate. If it moves here, oh, would you look at that? I can take a bishop. Alright, again. So we look for checks. This check hands a queen. Oh, but what about this check? What about this check? What does that do? And pawn takes here. Also, when the king has moves, you gotta look for stuff like this. So, check, and then you back up for the mate. Alright, again, what are your only checks? Well, there you have this, but, I mean, that hands a rook. Ooh, but there's this. Ooh, but there's this. And very important, oh no, he counterattacks my rook. No, 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 no. You take his rook and defend your own with this little Z shape here. You see how that works? Alright, you don't really, you have this check, but that doesn't really do anything. I mean, it's probably still mate. You can probably find a mate there somewhere, but it's best to be accurate, especially if you're low on time, and especially when you might get blown off the board too. It's protected right now, but yes, be accurate. Check and mate. Alright, now, how the heck did you get yourself... how do you get yourself in this position here? Alright, so king can only go here. Now, how do you checkmate? You have to get both of your rooks involved here. Now, how do you do that? Well, what if the king was here? Then this would be mate, right? Or what if you could get the queen somewhere down here and it would be mate? Well, then you attract the king over here, and then using this rook, and now no, I almost mouse slipped. Using this rook that cuts off this file, you bring your queen and you slap the king and checkmate them. Yeah. So, all right. So, this check doesn't, well, it does something. It forces the rook back. You can also take something, but the rook defends that, right? And if you go here, if the rook wasn't here, that would be back rank mate, because this square is covered by the knight. So he has to block with the rook, which relinquishes defense of the knight, but don't take it right away, because then you would hang your own rook. So you take the rook with check first, then you take the knight, and it's important to realize that you can stop all of the passed pawns fairly easily. Alright, I'm black here, I assume? Yeah, I'm black. Not actually black, but okay. Alright, so you can go win this pawn. You can have 3 passed pawns versus a bishop. It's important to note here that white cannot win if you win this pawn. So just win the pawn. You'll probably go on to win that, unless you mess it up. Which, I mean, if you do, it's fine. Not everybody can like win that. All right, so this is a capture. You don't really have any checks that do anything. So this is a capture and this is a capture. Now, if takes, rook takes, queen takes rook, that's good for us. But if takes, they don't have to take with the rook. They can take your queen, you would take their rook, and that it's queen and rook versus rook, rook, knight. That's not as good as you can get. What if you take here and they take back? Oh, well, would you? Look at that. That's a rook. It's important to note that this is not going to be a queen that ends up on that square. If it was a queen, you might get hit with a back ranker, but unfortunately, even if it was a queen, the rook can drop back, or the knight can drop back and defend. So, that's simple enough. Alright. Now, king doesn't have any escape squares in the back rank. That's the first thing you should notice here. Now, you can't get to the back rank right away because this rook guards. But what if you remove that rook with this, forcing knight takes, and then you get the rook there? And that is mate. I just went outside, now I'm like itchy as heck. I hope you didn't hear that. Alright. So, you can take a free pawn with opposition. You get a passed pawn too, that can distract one of the pieces. You can also go win this one. And the bishop can't be trapped. You have no checks because the king's on a dark square. So yeah, just take the pawn, and yeah, that's just a free pawn. Hope all of you would be able to see that was a free pawn. So this is a check. King would have to go here. I doubt that you can get away with this because of there. What am I doing? Okay, I'm actually high. Okay, that's just a free piece. My bad. Okay, I went a little nuts there. Alright, okay, we're back. First thing to notice, this pawn is pinned, so there is no defender of this knight. Now, this rook is pinning your own bishop to the knight. So what if you take something and threaten to take this as well? So if takes, what about what about the counter strike, the fork? Well, it's a good thing you cover that, eh? And he just takes and allows the rook in, so good. Alright, so this check hands a queen. This check actually can't be taken by the rook because that's mate. So the king would have to go here, and then you would so yeah, you have to calculate this too. You have to calculate this, make sure it's accurate. So here, king ends up here. What next? Well, you can give this check. You can go here, but you always gotta be accurate, and your king's situation isn't looking so hot right here. So you gotta be accurate. Gotta take first. Okay, well, if king g1, knight f3 is mate, but they just make it 10 times easier for us because that's the more obvious move. I would have gone king g1 because who knows if they might. Maybe they miss it, maybe they don't, but yeah. Alright, your queen is hanging. So is theirs. If you take theirs, they take yours. So how do you get out of this? Well, if you take this, you're not winning. The material would be, actually, it would be down a pawn, so you shouldn't be able to take it. You should look for checks. What's the only check that you have? Well, you have queen here and here, but only one of them is protected, and that one allows you to win the queen. Alright, so this check does nothing because the rook takes and stops g7, but what if you take this and force there to not be a defender of g7? I'm just trying to explain as best I can. Alright, so there's no mate here. There's this fork, but the bishop is defended by a pawn, and you might win, you might not, because this pawn is very close to queening. But yeah, king would take the pawn, so you gotta be more accurate. What about this check? If here... Oh, look at that, that's a fork! Ooh, see, just by looking for checks and what happens in those checks, it's also very important the king can't go here. Pawn covers that. And you just take the rook. Fantastic. Alright, so this is a free knight. But if you take that free knight, they take your bishop. So what if you take your bishop, their bishop attacking their queen? They can take here. But then you can take... You can, first of all, get out, but you can take back and you just have an extra piece because you took a piece on one move while they took a pawn. Then queen, queen, and then knight and bishop. So you're just winning. And yeah, of course, if they take back, then you can take the free piece. Hold up. Okay. I'm tired. I'm filming these pretty late at night because it's too noisy in the house otherwise. So this is a free piece, but they just counterattacked yours. So you always got to look at this at something you can do with the attacked piece. Now, you can take this, but this defends the knight, right? No, because this is a double attack. So you would take this and then take that. Fantastic. All right. Oh, yeah, I'm stiff. All right, what's going on here? Well, here you have a discover check actually in this position, and you want to play the most forcing moves possible. And if you go here, the king only has one move, and in that position, you can go check again. So check, and then you can check again. Ugh. All right. So, in this position, queen threatening a mate, how do you stop that? Well, you can go here. Your bishop might end up getting trapped in some positions. But what if you guard it with the bishop and counterattack their queen, which can't even defend their bishop? Oops, oops, oops. I mean, you can take the rook first if you'd like, but your rook is defended, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, now you're in check. Okay, so you don't have any checks because you're obviously in check, and the king is cut off here. So if you go to the back rank, your king's going to be cut off for good. You're probably going to lose because you're actually down a pawn. You might be able to hold it, you might not, who knows. But if you go here, the rook can't check you anymore. And this cuts off all of the squares that the king can go. You control all of this, you control all of that, and the pawns blocking the bishop. Now you can go here, takes, and you win a pawn on the next turn. So, in this position, you have this check, doesn't really do anything. King can just move. You have this check, that hangs a rook. You have this check, and if the king stops, that would be mate. And actually, this is just mate anyways. Now, quick question here. What do you promote with? A rook or a queen? You gotta make the rook, man. Gotta disrespect your opponents like that, you know? Anytime you can promote to a rook and it's mate, make that rook, bruh. You gotta make that rook. Gonna respond to someone real quick. Excuse me for one moment. Alright, I'm done. I had to do that. That was in response to a chess coaching DM. Alright, back to this puzzle. I hadn't even really looked at it yet. So the king only has one square to go. That's the first thing you should notice. You also have a check with the knight. Knight checks are pretty brutal. That's another thing you should notice. And what else do you have? You really don't have much else, actually. This is a position where you really don't have like anything. I mean, that might sound kind of like pessimistic, but like you don't have much here. So what happens when you get this check? King moves. Where can my knight go? Ooh, it can go here, and that's a fork. If here, you can actually go back and attack the bishop. The rook is still hanging, so you check, and then you fork the fork square into the fork, and then you take a bishop. And so, yeah. Alright, here, they take your queen. Now, you can try taking them, but yeah, then their queen's gonna get away. So you have to take their queen first. And now is very important. You obviously can't take because they X-ray defend you. But this bishop is yours for the taking. And you have 2 pieces for the rook, which is usually better for the 2 pieces unless it's some endgame scenario. Alright, in this position, what are they threatening? Well, I suppose they're threatening this, but then you just take the knight and they don't have anything. So you can just take this free piece and then this free piece, and then you're up 2 free pieces. So, hey, that's good. That's always nice. I love being up. I love being up many money pieces. Yeah, definitely. That made a lot of sense. Definitely. Made so much sense. Anyways. Alright, so you actually don't have any checks. Well, you have this, but they don't do anything because the bishop, actually here, the bishop can just take, and you're not winning really anything there. But what if you remove the defender of one? That might be interesting. If rook takes, it's a check, you can win the rook. That might be interesting. Who knows? But I'm noticing that the king can't move across the back rank. So how do you get to the back rank? Well, the rook can hit the queen and X-ray to the back rank mate square, which that would be mate. So the queen is actually stuck and trapped technically, and you can win it. How fascinating. How brutally fascinating. Alright, so you might notice that the queen and the bishop line up on this square, so you might want to, I don't know, discover, attack the queen, but no, that the queen just takes. The queen just takes, and it defends that. But what if you inverse your move order? What if you take like this, the king was here, and then you did this? Because then that would be a check. So let's try that, eh? And if the king moves somewhere else, you can pick up a rook. If there was nothing to pick up, then I mean, it's not that worth it. But in this case, it does win you a queen, and you'll likely win something else back as well in a future tactic. Okay, this, I see that the king can't cross, and I see that the back rank mate square is covered. And so your first thought might be to go here, and maybe chase the king away. First of all, the knight can block. Second of all, the king runs away. You can't allow that, so sack your queen for the one defending piece so that your second attacking piece can get in. Alright, I'm white. Yes, I'm white. Alright. So this pawn, very close. Stopped by this pawn though, which this pawn is defended by the rook. How do I get that out? Well, I can try to check, but he's taking my pawn. That's not good. So what if I go here, threatening this to pin the rook to the king? Well, that looks pretty damn sweet. Let's try it. And yeah, I would have won the pawn, and I would have promoted. King couldn't have taken the pawn, because then I pin. My pawn's just way faster. Yeah. Alright, 31, wow. Did not realize that we did 31 of these. Alright. So the king's pretty abandoned here, and there's no checks that do anything. What about attacks? That attacks the queen, bishop here, but that just sends a bishop. This also attacks the queen. Oh, would you look at that? That threatens mate too. And what can they really do to stop you? Well, they can give you this check to stop that, because the knight disconnected your queen's vision from that square. But then this, it attacks the queen, and the queen has no more checks after that. You always gotta be precise and realize when there are no more checks left. Important not to go here, because you can give up all of your king's safety. So you go here, they have to sack the queen, I guess, and you just win. Fantastic. Alright. Now this is another king hunt. Now you gotta be careful with your king hunts. You gotta not let the king be able to get away. Also, what opening was this? I'm genuinely curious. Okay. Alright, not too important. Alright, you can take a free pawn. Take a free pawn, nice. Your queen might get a little trapped and forced to defend one rook while you hang the other. That's not good. So, what can you do instead? Well, I have no checks other than this. And if queen takes, doesn't really look that good, to be honest. So, what else can you do? You could take a pawn, I suppose. But then you're still down a pawn. The queen's come off the board, so you have to play for something more. Now, what is that something more? What is that something more? Very good question. I'm actually not seeing it so far. I'm not gonna lie. Around like 33 and above, it starts to get hard, like pretty hard. But I really should be able to get this pretty easily. I've gotten over 50 with these. Some of these puzzles are extremely difficult randomly, because there's just so many puzzles, and it's hard to make them be like rated and like judged by like certain players solving them to like edit their rating. But yeah. I'm very tired too, so that's unfortunate. I don't want to use my skip turn here, but I feel like I'm actually gonna have to, because I actually don't see it. Actually, do I have, if this, here, king takes is the biggest issue. Yeah, that doesn't work, I don't think. And if here, king takes is another issue. It's probably very obvious and I'm just being blind. Definitely a possibility. I'm actually just gonna use my skip move for this. Oh, it was that. Wait, here. Oh, there's no way to defend the the queen, right? Here, 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 here. Is there no way to defend the queen? Wait, here. King takes, that's... Yeah, is this... I didn't really think this was good, but you have a fork in the end. I didn't see that. Okay. I mean, I did after the first move was played, but I didn't have faith. I didn't have faith. My bad, my bad, my bad. Alright, your piece is handing. This piece is handing. The king is hella weak, and if you take this piece, they're gonna either take yours or just, you know, get down here and just literally mate you. On both of these squares, actually. So what if you disconnect... What if you disconnect the pieces? It's an interesting thought. Or you could trade pieces and then take, but the problem with that is you get obliterated by the rook that comes. So it's probably best not to do that. So what else is there? Well, what if this? And if here, then you take the thing with check. You always gotta look at your checks. This disconnects from the mate, but then your queen is still attacked. If you trade, your knight's handing. But what about this? King moves. Okay. Okay. There's no threat against your king currently, so just take the queen. All right. So situation here is that if you take the rook, the pawn promotes. The pawn just promotes. There's no way to stop it. But you also have a promoting pawn, so it's just gonna end up being a queen, queen versus a bishop for you. But in this case, you actually can sack it for something of less value with that. So you should go with that. You know, you should just go with the thing that will make it less value. All right, so if this is a free rook, but if you take that, they take your rook with check and they get out. So what if you check them with your rook, then take this? Do they have a good, useful attacking move with their knight? The answer is no. The answer is no, that they don't. Okay. All right. What's next? So a very interesting piece coordination here. You always gotta look for checks. This check isn't mate, but what if it could be? What if you went here? And if king g8, rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes is mate. And if they take here first, then takes here and here or here, no matter what it is mate. So you gotta go here, then here, then here, and it's mate. Same situation here. If you got a rook here and this bishop wasn't here, that would be mate. But you have two attackers that do the same thing versus one defender. And if you have two attackers that do the same thing, that have like the same result on a square, then you can just go there anyway if it's 2v1. Here's a pawn in game. Here's a pawn in game example. Pawn in games, you gotta think of what threats can you make. Now this threatens to take. What if they take you? Then you take this, you have opposition, you win all of their other pawns, so this is definitely the move, and you take this one, not that one, because then they can... If you take the other one, I'm assuming there's some kind of drawing mechanism. Alright, fork. But your queen handing. Unfortunate. So what if you check first? If they block with the rook, that's a free rook because your knight hits it as well. If here, that's mate. If here, you just take a rook with check, bro. It's not that complicated. So here, this isn't mate. They can take your knight and even get away, but getting away is worse. Oh my god, I'm so fucking stupid. Is it winning, actually? I'm actually very... It's not, yeah, but you're still better, I think, actually. I had more faith in the position than that. I didn't, but yeah, always be accurate, guys. Always be accurate. Okay, that's it for me. I'm not gonna do another one. I'm not gonna go through all the lower rated puzzles again. Next time I will make it farther than that and not be an idiot. But yeah, have a nice day, y'all.